Nu filmas
Då
du.
rullar vi. Ja.
Mm.
Okay, so just to recapitulate, to get into the story again, what we have been reading for a while, we've been spent a lot of time talking about is the wave, and I think we have been reading like 9 chapters so far. And again, it's all about high school in California in the end of 1960s, 1968 or 1969 or something. And they're talking about Holocaust. And as a teacher, Ben, he talks with his class about this, he realizes that they find it very, very difficult to really understand how things could go so wrong. I mean, there's always been maniacs and stupid and mad people who have committed atrocities and terrible things. But how come that they could get so many people with them, the German population, so many people who went along and it seems never really protested? And that's a big question. And as they're talking about this, Ben realizes that perhaps we cannot just read in a book and try to get it. Perhaps we should try to really get into it in a deeper sense. Perhaps we should make an experiment. And that's what he does. I see it. Please. Yeah. So, and then he starts his thing and he says, okay, we're going to do some things there. And they start with 2 mottos. And the first motto is strength through discipline. And the next one is strength through community. So Ben reckons that for this group to succeed, to achieve strength and to really be the better versions of themselves, they need to work on the discipline, and they need to work on having some kind of community, because that's really some kind of key words. And so they talk a lot about this, and they talk about it with their friends, and one of the main characters is Laurie, and she has a boyfriend. He's called David. And David talks to his friend at the football team because they are performing very poorly. And they're asking ourselves, how come that we are losing all the time? It's no fun. And they talk about this and they say, well, perhaps it could be that we need some discipline. Perhaps we need to work on our sense of community. Perhaps we should embrace this experiment as well. So they start talking about this, and he's quite positive. David, and some of his friends also, he gets to work along with him too. Laurie, she is, she's one of the main characters, the protagonist in the novel. She's a very bright girl. She is used to always having the high grades, and so she's a very, takes a lot of responsibility. She's the chief editor of the school newspaper, among other things. And at home, I believe that was the last chapter we read, she talked to her parents about this, and just talking. And then her dad said, well, I think that sounds like a good idea, Laurie, this thing about community. I like the idea, and I like the idea of, putting an effort into things and really, doing your best and achieving this sense of community. I think that's good. While her mother thinks, well, Laurie, I'm a little concerned because I think it sounds a little militaristic, like in the military. And of course, they are her parents, and they knew. I mean, this is just like 20-something years after the Second World War passed. It finished. And they still have freshly in their memory what the Second World War was about. Among other things, they remember what we also talked about, Hitler, and he used league. It was called the Hitler Jugend. You recall that? Young people were invited to become young soldiers, to say. So, and they were very enthusiastic. You could see the posters. We looked at the posters. You could see the films we've been watching. They were very much into this. They felt enthusiastic, happy. They felt this kind of bright future that we are going to take over this world. We are the elite. And that's perhaps what Laurie's mom senses even now. This sounds, a little dangerous. It sounds like perhaps you are actually playing with fire, and that's something you should not do. You should not play with fire. And that's kind of where we are. just the last thing is when Ben gets home to his wife and he talks about this again, she says, you know, Ben, I can sense that you are really getting into this, and I'm a little afraid that perhaps you are not the scientist in charge of this experiment. Perhaps I'm sensing you are yourself becoming the guinea pig. Perhaps you are yourself becoming a prey, the one who's being tossed around and things are happening above your head and you cannot control it any longer. So that's what she's sensing. We don't know. Yeah, some of you know because you have seen this German film. It's called Dela, it came out some 5, 6, 7 years ago, which is based on this novel. They have altered things in the film. Some things are not the same at all, but some things are kind of the same thing. So you have an idea how this is going to end. But that's kind of where we are in the novel. So what we should spend some time on now, in a short while, is thinking about, okay, so what could be the positive about this? Because, I mean, it can't just be, and there's a lot of good stuff here. Who doesn't want discipline? I mean, who doesn't want community when it leads to, a bigger goal, something bigger? I mean, lack of discipline, what does that do to us? Well, that makes us lazy. We never learn things. Because we don't want to bother to exert our brain power. We're just lazy, just binge watching TV series night and day, 24/7. Not good. And what about community? Well, that's a good thing, because without community, you become lonesome, alone, on your own, no friends. That's one of the safest ways to becoming, to going down, to become depressed. It is not having community, not having friends. It's really not good. So community is a good thing, discipline is a good thing, but what could be the downsides? That's something we should ask ourselves. Yeah, please.